Good afternoon and welcome to the Soul Shop. I am your host, Phyllis King, and today I am so excited and thrilled and honored to have the wise and wonderful Dr. Susan Allison. She is, let me get her credentials and proper here. You can do that. Believe you're a transpersonal therapist, but you're a shamanic practitioner, an energy healer. You're the author of 5 different works, and the one we're going to talk a lot about today is Empowered Healer, which I read 10 years ago at least, and it's stuck with me and I still refer to it often. So you've won awards, you've been all over the place doing many wonderful things, you've written poetry, and we're going to talk about all of this, so I'm not going to cram it into the introduction, but thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Phyllis. It's so good to see you again.
Yes, and everyone's with us today, and people will have a chance to talk to you as well. You have done so much, it's hard to know where to begin. But I always like to hear the personal story before you became a therapist, essentially.
So I was a teacher for many years and taught at the high school and university levels, and mainly taught English. But I started teaching a course called peer counseling that I developed myself and then taught to other teachers in other schools in California. And when I started that course, I became more and more interested in psychology. And I noticed that all the books I taught in my English class were psychological in terms of looking at human behavior. And so I was more and more drawn to the field of psychology. And so I got a master's degree and then a PhD. But I was still teaching and doing therapy at some point, and that was a lot to do both. And I had 2, younger children at the time. And so I can remember they're sitting on my lap, as I'm writing papers, frantically writing papers for my various degrees. So, and actually, because you mentioned Empowered Healer, that we're going to talk about that the most, Empowered Healer was actually my PhD thesis. And what happened was the professor and then other people who reviewed it thought I should publish it, that it shouldn't just stay dusty in some archive somewhere, some file drawer. And so I was encouraged to publish it, which I did. But it was something that I'd been working on for a long time, in terms of gathering, as you know, gathering sort of your tool bag of skills, and depending on what the person needs, you pull out that tool that you have learned over the years. You have done your own research, your own education around those issues.
So you'd already been a practicing therapist, and then you were getting your doctorate and doing the thesis. And so you were compiling information and case studies at that point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, because in the book, as you know, since you've read it a few times, there are case studies in the book. I've changed the person's first name.
Sure.
But I do have, several of my clients are in the book. Mm-hmm. About their own issues, their own illnesses and injuries and emotional issues that this method helped with.
Yes. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. But I think what I want to say, it makes sense to me now that English was important to you in terms of being a teacher, because I find your book so incredibly easy to read and thoughtful and succinct. And Empowered Healer is a little book, but boy, is it packed full. I mean, every sentence has something of value to take you to the next sentence and the next process. And it doesn't seem like you've missed anything from my point of view. But so you began your thesis. I mean, I guess, what was the break open moment when you said, oh, this is a path to healing, or this is how people find a way to heal, and that became your project?
I have to say, and I'm for the people listening, I'm sure you've had experiences in your own life like this that are catalysts for moving forward. But my husband, Tom, was diagnosed in 2007 with larynx cancer. So this book was published in 2011, and he passed away in 2013. So this book and then the later nonfiction book, You Don't Have to Die to Go to Heaven, both of them were inspired, prompted by his illness and then subsequent death. So I just wanted people to know that this method is available and it works. But my husband did not want to do alternative medicine. He wanted to do Western medicine. You know, so he had 7 surgeries and I think two or three bouts of radiation, and he had chemo twice, and then a clinic in Reno, which was totally alternative. He did do alternative medicine there in terms of high dose vitamin C and so on. Anyway, it was the biggest challenge of my life to step back, and I talk about this in Empowered Healer, that you cannot save, rescue, or fix anyone unless they really want to be healed. And that's why I wrote this book, Empowered Healer, because you then become the empowered healer of your own body, mind, spirit, your own life. And I could not save him any more than I can save you or anybody else on the planet. All I can do is say, here it is. And, you know, if you truly want to be here, I think that's some of it. Not everyone, you know, still wants to be here, and therefore they're not really engaged in their own healing because they're sort of done. And so anyway, so his illness and death prompted me. He was still alive when I published this book, so I was still hoping that he would embrace some of these techniques, which he did. And if we have time.
Yeah, there's one of the stories in the book about that as well.
Yeah, that I did one session with him before the tumor board at Stanford. We get there and the oncologist scope his throat and put it up on a screen, and they could, and there were like 5 famous oncologists in the room and residents and, you know, interns that they're teaching. The tumor was gone.
It's just
the tumor was gone, and the head surgeon was so embarrassed. He was embarrassed. He kept looking closer and trying to find it for the people that he was teaching. It was gone.
It's really,
and it was a miracle. And we had about 10 minutes of joy, and then all these people came in the room, surgeons and people who were in charge of the chemotherapy and the radiologist, and scared my husband, just really frightened him. So that, in other words, his fear made him continue to keep doing the Western medicine. He was sort of convinced by them, because they said things like, well, it'll come back, and it's cellular, and you don't try anything else, you need to do blah blah. Anyway, so that was hard for me. I had to really step back and let him have his own journey and his own path. But it wasn't easy.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. And I think about most people I know, or I mean, it just seems like those of us who struggle in our health, we don't know how to trust ourselves anymore. We've lost the ability to have confidence in ourselves. And that's part of the tagline in the book, Restoring Confidence. Yeah, and these voices that come into our experience, like these physicians, and I know they mean well. I don't think they're out to cause us harm, but they override our own wisdom, it seems like at times. Is there any way we can, what's the first step in sort of?
Well, I think that we have to stop making them gods. Yeah. And I think that what we do is and you're right, we let go of, turn over our own inner wisdom. And anybody who's been pregnant knows this, that a doctor told me, you will not give birth for 2 weeks. And I knew I was going to start labor that night. And I did. So the point is that if we can trust our own bodies, our own minds, our own spirits, and know that we are that we have great intuition and can use that intuition to heal ourselves, then that's the key. To have faith in our own ability to know what's going on in our own bodies and our minds and spirits, and not turn over that power.
Exactly. And I think we forget how incredible our bodies are, that we don't even have to think to breathe, or for the blood to run through our veins, or for us to grow, or recreate cells, anything. Our body has its own wisdom, and I don't even think we fully grasp the gravity and the totality of that.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
So maybe we could start with a couple more stories. I know I really love the story about, I mean, I don't love the story of loss per se, but the connection you made with your parents and cysts in your breasts and how that worked.
Yeah. I'll just read you the beginning of a poem. I have, as I am writing a new book, and the book is going to be poetry, but then journaling questions, what the poem brings up for you, and then allowing the reader to write their own poem.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very excited about this book because it combines my work as a nonfiction writer with my work as a poet.
Nice.
But yeah, so if I can find it, yeah, it's right here. But because I did care, the book talks about getting cysts when I experienced loss. And that's what you're talking about, right, Phyllis?
Yes. And then how you were able to connect to those cysts and understand their purpose, and then at that point release them.
Yeah, so it's somewhere in here, the poem in the book, but
basically.
basically.
And you do you do an excerpt from the poem, I believe.
I do.
Yeah, and I mean, when I first was reading that, I mean, I was bawling because it could just feel the realness of it, not only the loss of your parent, but the truth that was in that about your experience. And it.
I found it.
Okay.
So this is in Empowered Healer, but this is in the beginning of part 1.
Okay.
I found a lump in my left breast after my father died. Just couldn't let him go. Held him in my tissue in a small, smooth marble near my heart. Now I carry a stone in the same breast. It holds the ending of a marriage, the leaving of 2 children, the losing of my home. Mm-hmm. So it's all about various losses happening to us. And I feel like loss is a huge reason that we become ill. A lot of the people I've worked with have tumors and have various, and I told you before the show, the client who created a tumor in a sense without wanting to, but just did after losing her baby. And she was trying to fill her uterus with something that resembled a child. It was heartbreaking and amazing, but we were able to do the process and it completely disappeared. So we tend to stuff whatever we haven't worked on, we stuff it in our bodies. Mm-hmm. And I find that there's almost always a psychological cause. There's almost always, which is why part 1 has all these questions where you really look at what was going on in your life when you became ill.
Well, let's put that in order for the listeners, because I know exactly what you're talking about. But essentially, the book does break down a process, which is 4 steps. And you started to describe that first step. That's
right. So the book is in 4 parts, but the 3 parts are the main parts. And first, you have to believe you can heal. So there's part 1 where you have to sort of gain confidence in your own ability as part 1. Mm-hmm. Part 2 is to gain power, and gaining power by seeing what your own spiritual beliefs are, and deciding what those are, and if you can tap into some source that's greater than you are. Mm-hmm. There are ways to meditate in that section, to really to do shamanic journey work where you're actually asking for guides and spiritual allies to come and to be your spirit healing team. Mm-hmm. And then I also suggest you get an earthly healing team to surround you, whether it's a therapist, it's a doctor, it's a body worker, it's an acupuncturist, you create your own team.
Right.
Only people that love you and support you and want your healing and want your best. You have to weed out anybody that isn't in that category, that is a naysayer or who would bring your spirit down in some way. So that's part two. You're
And
talking part three, though, is the 4 steps.
yes, and I just want everybody to know that in the book, when she's talking about regaining your confidence and connecting to power and divine, whatever, there's so many different words for it, but it's very specific. It's not ambiguous. So when you read the book, you will understand exactly how to achieve that. That's what I love about the writing. It's just easy to understand, and there's different options. So, okay, so now we believe, and we have a little bit of confidence that maybe something can happen here. Then what happens?
Yeah, so we gain confidence, and then we fill with power of knowing that part of this is knowing we're not alone. And I think that a lot of us go through life, and at times in our lives, we feel really alone. And some of us, including me, I have trouble asking for help. I want to do it all myself. Yes, and someone else in the room is relating that, just wanting to do it my way, wanting to do it myself, being really independent and so on. But asking for help is so important in this process, so that you reach out and know you're not alone, that you have people around you. You are choosing these people that will help with your healing. And then the spiritual aspect, or the for me, a shamanic aspect, is that I teach you how to close your eyes and visualize and go into a light trance, and go to a beautiful garden space that's yours. It's like a meditation. And then you invite in, you invite in beings who love you. And it really works. And I've been doing this shamanic work since 1995. So way before I wrote this book, I was engaged as a shamanic practitioner, and learning how to navigate the spirit worlds, the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world, that some people call heaven, or whatever your belief is. So then you feel that you have this support team.
Yes.
On the spiritual level and the earthly level, you have so much support, and that gives you even more confidence that you're not doing this alone. And then you're ready to try a session using the 4 steps, as you mentioned. So that's part 3.
Well, I know I actually have someone right now who's working her way through the questions. There's a lot in the questions you ask. I mean, so we have to be willing to be still and talk to ourselves, but have a conversation. I mean, it seems simple, but why is that so hard for us to sit still and look at these questions that take us closer to ourselves?
Because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. Some of these questions are asking what was going on in your life when this happened. You know, when you had this accident, or you had this illness. I had recurring pneumonia, both as a child and then as an adult. And every time I was holding grief in my lungs, and I was swallowing my grief. I was stuffing it. So the questions are going to say, what was going on in your life when this happened? One of the cases in the book is a woman who had recurring pneumonia and scarring in her lungs. And she went through a horrible divorce and hated her ex-husband. She was holding all this venom, and went in there, and her lungs were like covered in gray slime, and she could actually journey in and see them, and realize that she was so cold, that she was cold in her anger and her lack of forgiveness, and she had no warmth in her life, and she kept causing this recurring condition. So the questions aren't easy.
Yeah.
They're asking you, what is it in your life that's happened that has caused this? And also, there's also a set of questions about your resistance.
Yes.
Because okay, here's an example. A client who had it was a form of cancer, and I do think it was, again, it was uterine. And she created it unconsciously to get more attention from her husband. And because she was ill, she had this dividend that she got more attention.
Yes, that's the other piece that we don't think about. How is it? What's the payoff?
We're hanging on to whatever it is because someone is being kinder, someone's paying attention, someone seems to love us more. When they bring us a hot pack, or they bring us our pills or whatever. And so there's a whole set of questions about resistance. Like, why are you hanging on to this? What dividends are you getting from having this either physical or emotional issue? What are you getting from it? Because you're not yet willing to give it up.
Yeah.
There must be something you're getting.
It's interesting because I think if I mentioned to you off the air here, I had a struggle with migraines for several years. Thank God I don't anymore, not like I did. And I remember during that period of time, the amount of stress that I was digesting as a normal way of being. And I remember being very angry and very resentful and very upset and feeling very victim-y. And it wasn't until a moment when I was on the bed, dark room, writhing in pain, and I finally just surrendered and said, well, this is it. And I had some Stephen Halpern music on just to kind of keep me conscious. And then all of a sudden a wisdom came. And it was like, there's a lot of resentment here. And you need to, I got a lot of insight about what I needed to do to make myself feel better, not migraine wise, but in my emotional and the way I was being in the world. And that was really the beginning of coming out of it. So there is a lot of wisdom in these illnesses or these problems. And all we typically see is the problem. I have this migraine, I have this thing, how do I get it to stop? As opposed to what's the origin of what's going on in the whole picture, the holistic view.
Yeah, what you did, Phyllis, is that you went into the pain. And in the book, I have an acronym for pain, which is pay attention inside now. So the acronym in the book is about really pain. It's like your body's going, hello, there's something wrong here. Maybe, it's something in your life that you need to change. Hello. So please pay attention inside now. I'm going to make you hurt until you pay attention. It's like our body is saying, something isn't working. Something in our life is not working. And then, so you paid attention to the pain and you got that incredible, breakthrough. And that's what I find with every single client, every single one who does this process, which is journeying into your body to the side of whatever is bothering you, dialoguing with it, doing an extraction, removing what's there that doesn't belong, and then bringing in light and color energy healing to fill the space where whatever was you extracted was. So
well, and to validate what you were saying on the book, and this is a little woo-woo, but that's all right, we're all on the same woo-woo page here. But during that time too, I think I was probably working with 4 or 5 different practitioners, and they all wanted the best for me, and I was trying and they're trying, and we're all trying to figure it out. And so, but it does all come together at some point, and if we're compliant with our process, we're going to get some information. We're going to heal. We're going to find our way through.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, at first you have to want to. Yes. You must want to do this. And it almost like you did. You had it, hadn't you, by then? When you were lying in that dark room, you had it. So we almost, because most of us are pretty stubborn, is what I find, me included. And yes, very stubborn, which means, and some of us have had childhoods where you put your head down and you just keep going, right? You just, you're taught to suffer. You're taught to just, you can get through this.
Power through.
Get through it. But the point is, what you did is you had it, And it's like Marianne Williamson. I just love her, and her book, Return to Love. She says, when we're in a place like you were, Phyllis, we get down on our knees. And she said, the problem is we get up. So instead of continuing to ask for help, we think we're going to do it all ourselves. And we still remain stubborn and unwilling to change in a way. So you got to a point where you wanted to stop the cycle.
And at another point in the book that I love, and you can probably speak to this in a general sense as well, I had to let go of different resentments and hatreds I was having toward people who I felt were offensive to me. And that forgiveness piece is in the book. We have such a hard time with that. We think that forgiving somehow lets someone off the hook and we can't do it. So maybe you could speak to that piece in the healing process and how, where we get stuck in that.
Yes. There's, and I've done a lot of this work myself, which is why it's in the book and it's really important, is there's a whole set of questions and then a process you can go through where you write down. It's like a whole life review. All the people that, in a sense, you felt that harmed you, all the people that you're still resenting these people. You've not let it go and you've not forgiven them. So there's a process though, and I learned it from several teachers in the past, where you can't just say, oh, I forgive this, because you've stuffed it somewhere. And so it's my belief that after you write down all your resentments, you get them out, you do the easiest ones first, then the middle ones, and then the hardest ones last. And you get to a point where in fact, I don't think I have this in the book, but one of the things that I do with clients is you forgive with resistance. You first say, I'm kind of ready to let this go. And then finally, you get to the place where you're really ready to let it go. And you have a process of saying, I forgive. It's like my father on his deathbed was still angry with his fourth grade teacher, was still angry with the principal at the school when he was in fourth grade. And if I had known this then, in terms of, he wouldn't have listened anyway, but if he had, he could have done a process where he forgave the teacher, forgave the principal, and he could have let it go out of his body, his mind, his spirit, his heart, which was hurting from the experience he had. And so it's very important to do the process first by getting those resentments out. You want to get them out of your body. Your anger, your resentment, your lack of forgiveness out of your body. And you do a process, and I suggest people tear it up and burn it after you've done it. So you're clearing it. And then you write, I forgive, in my dad's case, I forgive my fourth grade teacher and let her go. So, and I know this isn't easy. I have a hard time of letting go of things. My husband was just telling me, he said, your conflicts are never with me. Your issue is that you don't know how always to let go. So, and I was really, he's very wise. I was really able to hear him. He just said it this morning, so it's fresh. So I'm not some perfect guru. I have the same issues all of you have. And I have been working on them hard my whole life. And so I can say that. But I have a hard time letting go of things. But it's important in terms of feeling healed and whole, is that we're cleansed. Letting all this that's happened to us, let it go.
And I think one of my favorite parts about how the book is written and how it progresses and why it works so well is that it's progressive, but it's sort of like layers. Let's just peel one little layer, then let's do another little layer, and now another little layer. And eventually we start feeling lighter and lighter and more capable. And it's so simple to follow and understand. Okay, so we've done our inventories, our lists, and our resentments and our forgivenesses and releasing, and then what?
So that's all the preparation.
The preparation.
That's all the preparation for the actual work. So part 3 is all about you gaining, you taking action. And nothing happens in life if it's just in our head. It doesn't happen until we take action. And you all who are here know that that's true. We can worry about something like, you know, like someone sends us a bill and it's wrong, right? And so we think about it and we're upset. Well, nothing happens until we call them or write to them or do something to change what is happening. So action is definitely the name of part 3. You actually sit down and learn how to be your own empowered healer, how to journey into your own body. Phyllis and I talked about doing a demonstration, which we could. I could do a demonstration with her, but I'll just tell you the 4 steps. The 4 steps are, number 1, you go into a light, relaxed state. And I do this by having people breathe deeply and close their eyes. And I have a client, people like my voice, but I have a client who I always put him to sleep because he said, oh, I'm just so relaxed. And, you know, then he's out, right? So I said, this doesn't work at dinner parties, you know, my voice, and then suddenly everybody's head is like in their soup, right? So, but my voice is calming, but you're doing this yourself. And so you close your eyes, take some breath, and on an exhale, you imagine that you can travel to the place wherever it's bothering you. Like, let's say you're having chronic neck pain. Well, then you would imagine that you can visualize yourself going inside your neck. Let's say it's the left side of your neck. And so you go down inside there, and that's step 1. Step 2 is that you ask for some light. It's usually kind of dark. You ask for some light. And if you have, in part 2, found spirit allies, some of my clients have fairies, they have Jesus, they have a bird, they have a grandmother. So you call on your allies and you say, I need more light, and you believe, and then the light comes, and you use your senses to see what's there. So just using the example that you're journeying into your neck, people see everything that doesn't seem real that you could see. Like there could be you could be visualizing a rock. You're inside there and you see this giant boulder, or you see a pyramid. My clients have seen everything, but there's something in there that you see, and then you move closer to it and you dialogue with it, which is step 2. You say, why are you here? Do you have a message for me? And what do I need to do to get you to leave? So even, remember what I said, that it's all about paying attention? As soon as you pay attention to this boulder in here, it usually would start to dissolve, even before you extract it, which is step 3. It's already willing to go because finally you're noticing. Finally, you are addressing the problem that is much larger than your pain. It's caused by something. So step 1 is that you journey in there. Step 2 is that you dialogue with whatever you find. Phyllis?
Yeah, and then I'm just curious, how long will that, because I want people to have a chance to ask you a question, but
Sure.
Can we do that in a few minutes time? 5 minutes?
You want me to do a session with you?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just finish the steps.
Yes.
So
okay.
then step 3, once you found this boulder and it's still there, maybe some of it dissolved, but you still have it, you do an extraction process. And again, if you have gotten some allies in part 2, they can help you. Okay. Clients have suddenly had brooms come in, or vacuum cleaners. I mean, it's just amazing, people's imagination, what comes. But you gather up whatever is there. In this case, let's say it's a boulder, and you get help to do it. You're not doing it alone. And then you send it up into the universe to be rendered harmless.
Mhm.
So you extract whatever is there that doesn't belong after it has told you what the problem is. So you want to remember that it's already told you, well, what's wrong is you hate your job and you need to quit. And you're carrying this boulder of resentment towards your boss. So whatever that you've been told, you have to remember that. Then you extract it. And then step 4 is that you bring in colored light, which is energy healing. You bring in colored light through the top of your head, and you fill the space that had the boulder. You fill the space with this beautiful, beautiful light. That's in the color that's the most healing for this area will come.
Mm-hmm.
And you fill the whole area and return it to normalcy.
Mm-hmm.
So that is that's step 4. There is a step 5 quickly, which is, and it's in a different part of the book, the last part of the book. You have to do what you were told.
Well, that's what I was saying. We have to, and that's part of the confidence building, that when we're told, we have to listen, we have to do it.
That's right. That's right. I had a client who had horrible stomach problems. We did a couple sessions. She was told her whole life had to change, basically. She went away and didn't do it. And the problem came right back. She left my office without any pain. She had really gotten to the issue, and the story's in the book. She left, but then didn't make any changes. And the problem came right back.
Mm-hmm.
So then she did come to another session, and then she was willing at that point to make the changes, and she never had the problem again.
I see.
And there's several stories like that in the book, but there is kind of a step 5 that then you have to do what you were told.
And then you can repeat this process.
I can do it when I work with you.
Right now, but when we're working on it at home or with someone, we just go through it until we find.
Yeah. You can, and then this process you can use for everything for the rest of your life.
Well, and I was wondering, since I don't tend to have any physical things going on, I'm wondering if I could use like an emotional thing, like the fact my ex-husband, I mean,
yes, but but I would ask where you are carrying him in your body.
Okay, all right.
Where do you feel that? So just do a body scan right now. Just close your eyes and just do a scan where you notice where you are carrying your ex-husband. Where is that anger, the resentment?
Well, and it's interesting because I don't know if I got this from, or you were picking up on me, but I do feel it right back here in my neck, and I want to go, I just want to.
It sounds like some of it is in your throat.
Yeah.
If you're almost ready to throw up when you think of him, I would say that it's probably in this whole area.
Yeah, it did. Well, as we're talking, my whole neck feels like this. And I hadn't thought about that before.
Yeah, we were going to do another one, but this is perfect. Do we have the time to do maybe how much time do we have?
Well, I mean, we have as long as we want. I don't know how long everyone can stay. And I kind of want them to be able to talk to you if they want to. I feel a little selfish taking you to myself. But
so and people can weigh in. Would you rather use this time to ask me questions?
Yeah, let me see first, because I think that's a huge awareness for me about the neck, and I can probably do it on my own if you and I don't get to it. But let me see if anybody has a question that's come up for them before I
think it's a good idea, is to let people talk if they want.
So anybody, let's see, Barry, Florence, Jody, Katrina, Roseanne, Barry, Sonia, you can unmute yourself if you want to ask Susan a question.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I'm going to take her to myself. You guys, you lose that. So probably scared.
Anybody have a question? I don't bite. Usually.
You can put it in the chat room also if you don't want to speak on camera. That's fine. No? Well, then I'm getting the signal you guys want to watch her do her thing with me. Am I getting a thumbs up from you guys that you can watch her work with me? And
all right.
Yeah, I'm not seeing there's no chat there, but they're engaged. So okay. They're gonna I'm getting a thumbs up, I guess.
Right, good.
I'm the guinea
Yeah, you
pig.
did.
All
Well,
right.
I'll
Oh,
ask a
okay, Barry,
question.
go for it. Yes.
Sure. And it's Barry, right?
Yeah.
Hi, Barry.
Gosh, it's hard to delineate one issue, you know, in a when it's maybe tied to something tied to abundance, or what's going on with me and why don't I have the abundance I want, or well, I've been told it's time for me to move on, you know, from a particular job, and but I won't leave a job until I have another one. So there's all kinds of questions about where I hold what, you know. So where do you go when you're not sure?
When you're not sure, a lot of my work has to do with where you carry it. So for you, feeling like you don't have enough, there's not enough abundance, you know, is there anything going on for you about you not feeling like you are enough?
Yeah.
So that's where I would probably go, is that not feeling that you are enough, which can even bring some emotion, some sadness. And then I would see where you're carrying that, where you're carrying this feeling that you aren't producing enough, and that you don't have enough abundance. And that, you know, I keep going like this because it's almost kind of a heart thing.
Well, I actually, doctors have told me I have arterial blockage, or that, and in my heart and in a thing in my carotid thing. And so I've always maintained that it's just that I don't love myself enough because I keep it in my heart. But
I think you're onto it. I think you're absolutely right. And I don't advertise that I'm psychic, but I can journey actually into others' bodies and see what's going on. And I immediately, you saw me, I kept going like this because I was feeling like it was in your heart. So if you read the book and you do the process, or if I did it with you, that's where I would probably have you journey. Okay, good. I would have you go into your heart space. And my guess is there are going to be a lot of tears. And
there already are.
I know, I could see it in your eyes. And so I call it years of tears. And so that it's a lot. But once you get there and you start working, that release is going to be incredible in terms of letting go of wherever this came from or wherever it started, probably in childhood. So that's what I would do if I were you, is I would do a session where you journey into your heart. And then you trust whatever comes. And there could be anything there. You could see a little boy in there. You could see, a little bit of a broken heart. You could see someone that you've lost. Anything could happen when you go in there. And that's why it's important to have allies go with you, that you can take, let's say you had a grandmother you loved, that she could be there with you when you do this work. It really helps. And then you start looking where this came from, and then how to let it go, how to release it, how to extract that belief that you're not enough, because you are enough. And a great affirmation for you would be, I am enough. I, Barry, am enough. I do enough, and I have enough. It's a really great affirmation that I've given to a lot of people and have used it myself. But thank you for being brave and asking me that question.
Well, Phyllis knows we've known each other for a bunch of years. What's you might be interested, I already do energy healing, but like some people are like trying to heal a brick wall because they won't let go of stuff.
Right.
And I've had that happen. And to me, that's frustrating because I want to be able to channel. I'm a channel. I'm not the healer.
That's
you
right.
know,
That's
and,
right. That's absolutely right. Yeah, I do Reiki. I'm a Reiki master, and it comes through me. And then
yeah,
you know,
sure.
also it's co-created.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it, and I get it from somewhere else,
Mhm.
whatever you believe. And then I co-create it. The person, you know, I have one client who's so good at drawing in energy, healing. She's healed so much, but it helps if like you said, if the other person is willing and ready to let it go.
What's
Well,
always been frustrating is I don't go farther in energy healing because I feel like I'm not remotely healed myself.
Ah,
And so when I'm not abundant, when I don't feel abundance, when I don't feel I have support teams of whatever, or I don't. Phyllis has wanted me for years to have a website, and I have one, but it's not open.
and why is that?
Because I'm going, who am I?
It's back to the not good enough, though, Barry.
Yeah.
You know, and let me tell you, I just had this discussion with someone yesterday, one of my clients. Most people who go into this work, we are wounded healers. And I get goosebumps when I say that, because my clients who come to me don't want someone who is perfect. They don't want someone who's never, ever had a loss. And when I wrote my divorce book, so many people said to me, I don't want to go to a single therapist. What do they know about marriage? What do they know about divorce? I want to come to someone who actually has been divorced. And I had, I had all these groups, mainly of women, but groups of women who were divorcing. And I totally got them because I was divorced. And so you are a wounded healer, and people will trust you more because you have had a lot happen to you in this life. And so you can understand people's grief and their loss, their sadness, their anger. So anyway, we're wounded healers.
mhm.
So anyway.
I
You'd
love
appreciate
that.
this. I also have a degree in psychology. And
Well, so Barry, you're stacked full of gifts and talents, and yeah, but
Absolutely.
I can't wait to see what happens on your journey with Empowered Healer now that you've got the book and you're working the steps.
Me too.
Does anybody else have any? Thank you, Barry, so much. And anyone else have a question or a comment you want to make to Dr. Susan, Allison, or Susan?
Susan's fine.
Hi,
Who's this? Florence?
Florence. Thank you, as always, for bringing us the most amazing people. I guess we resonate at this moment with the audience that we are having, you bring on. And thank you, Dr. Susan, for your time to share with us
You're
a
welcome.
little bit of the unknown that's at our fingertips to heal. And yet, just like Barry said, how do I know? How do I identify what needs to be looked at? I am a healthy person physically and mentally, most of the time, emotionally, and yet I have certain struggles. And you use an example that resonated with me. A fourth grade teacher, actually it was a third grade, that punished me without cause, and it was embarrassing. And I'm usually not holding grudges, but that's my question. How do I know that deep, 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 deep in my soul being, I'm still connected with that painful experience, which is impacting me 50 years after it
Yeah.
happened?
Yep. Thank you for sharing that. I think there are a couple things you could do. I tend to work through the body only because I did a lot of work with Hawaiian shamans, and they believe we have 3 souls. We have a body soul, we have a mental soul, and a spirit soul. And we tend to denigrate the body. We don't pay attention to our bodies. Obviously, you know that particularly in the West. We stay right up here. We stay in our heads. So I tend to feel, there are lots of people who have said this, but I love the expression, the body doesn't lie. And so the body will tell you the truth of where you're carrying this teacher, where you're carrying the shame of it, or you're carrying, you said embarrassed, and it was shameful, and you probably are carrying some resentment, maybe some anger towards her, but just, it was really a difficult experience for you. So, there are a couple things you could do, and I don't think I have this one thing in the book. I think it's in another book, but you could either figure out where you're carrying it in your body by seeing if there's tension. If you're carrying it in your stomach, in your solar plexus, which is your power center, would be my guess. You might be carrying it there, and you do the 4-step process by going in and seeing, yes, that you're still carrying her with you. The other thing, and I don't think it's in this book, I think it's in my book after this, but you can actually do a visualization into your heart where you can find your higher self in your heart space. You imagine your higher self would live in this beautiful, beautiful place, and you imagine this place, and then you invite her, in your case, invite her to come speak with you. And she's going to be like you, but just sort of a more light-filled spirit being who comes. She could actually look like a human woman, or she could be full of just light. And you talk to her, and you ask her to help you release this. What is the highest outcome for you in the process you're doing with your higher self? So this would take another show to be able to talk about how to do that process with your higher self, and your higher self rather than your ego. Anyway, it's a longer process than we have today, but that's what I would do. I would first try to go in through the body.
It's very interesting. Thank you so much. I will immediately after this, and when I have time today, I will go back and reframe that situation. What's interesting, 5 years after that, it happened again, same at school, but now was doubled. There were 2 instances separate from each other, 2 different classes, but the same. I was punished without fault at all, and I think that's now it's building up on each other. And like you just said, I need to go back to release that resentment, pain, embarrassment, and hopefully all other things around it today will dissipate.
That's
and
right.
I don't know, Florence, I don't know if you got the book, but the book has a process for us to do this. That's what I love it. It's just very simple, very it explains it step by step. So
it's part 2 in the book, Florence, where you write down the people that you're still holding and still resenting. And then there's a process of letting go of them. Putting them in a hot air balloon is one idea. Watching them, if you can remember what your teacher looked like, watching that person walk over a hill and disappear, and you never see them again, and you make the path disappear and them disappear. So it's a process of letting go, and that's in part 2 of the book.
Okay,
Florence, thank you so much. We probably have time for one more question before I let that happen. I want to let you guys know that Susan has multiple books. I mean, Empowered Healer has been with me for a decade, I'm sure, and it's just never left my mind. But where are all the books here? We have Conscious Divorce, Breathing Room, Our Spirits Dance, and now Our Spirits Dance, right?
Yeah.
And You Don't Have to Die to Go to Heaven. Wow.
That's my I haven't written since 2015, but the book in 2015 is called You Don't Have to Die to Go to Heaven.
Yeah, that's,
And
I mean,
it's with Red Whale Weiser Books, and it's about being able to journey to spirit worlds, to be able to connect with beings who love you, and to connect with people who have passed on. And it really, I wrote it after my husband died. My husband died in 2013, and the book was published in 2015. And it helped me in my grief. And it's helped a lot of people going through grief, because you realize that that death is not the end. And I've studied quantum physics a great deal, that everything's energy, that we are energy, and energy never dies. So that what the book does is help us, first of all, let go of our fear of death, and then be able to connect with beings, with loved ones especially, and know that they're just fine, that they're doing well, that they're happy, that the world that they're in is full of love. It's an incredible process to realize that we don't have to fear, and we don't have to fear for ourselves or for our loved ones.
Well, I'll have all this information available probably in my newsletter on Facebook or something. I couldn't find your website. Do you still have it?
I no longer have a website.
Well, that's
And
not gonna work.
the reason
You and Mary
is,
have to get together and launch your websites again.
no, the reason I don't have a website is that I had way too many people wanting to work with me, and it became overwhelming. And I'm semi-retired. I see a few clients. I told Phyllis, I kept my favorite clients, but I let go of a lot of people last October, so a year ago. And so I am, once in a while I take someone new, but the website was just too much. And so, yeah, so I no longer have a website. But I do have an email that you're welcome to put my email up, and I have a new phone number, so I can give you that.
Well, and I'll just put the books and the titles of the books in all my groups on Facebook and such, because I want to read some of these. You're just one of my favorite authors. Your style, and you're so practical and sensitive, and you're just the whole package. But okay, if there's one more question, I'll give some lucky person that opportunity.
Hi.
Hi.
In fact, that was one of my questions, if you were accepting new clients, but you just answered that.
Well, I might. What I told Phyllis before the show is I instinctively or intuitively connect with people in terms of who it is I take on. So I wouldn't say a complete no. I would say that you should reach out, we should connect, and we'll see if there's a match. Because I always tell people who are looking for a therapist is that you look for where there's a match, that you feel a resonance, you feel a connection with the person. And that's how I've always chosen my own therapist. So, yeah. So it's fine to reach out, Tanya.
Thank you. And I'm actually going through your book right now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect. I'm glad you spoke up.
Thank you.
Well, Susan, I am so grateful you came today.
You're welcome.
I've just been a fan of your work forever, and I didn't even know you had all these other gems out here in the world, and still working the book with people.
Still writing a new book.
Wonderful.
Do you have time for me to finish with a poem?
Yes, please. That sounds wonderful.
So this new book I'm writing, it's called Molting, Shedding the Past, Growing a Future, Poems to Inspire You to Write Your Truth. And I'm really excited about it because it's going to have a poem. The first part is of the past. So all the poems are about the past, and then journaling questions for the reader, and then you write your own poem. So I really like it. I'm combining everything I've ever done in my life in this book. So that's kind of fun. So it's partly teacher, partly psychologist, partly poet myself. So for instance, I'm going to read a poem. And so, for instance, this poem would be there, and then you would get to journal about what this brought up for you. And then about your own past, your own childhood, for instance, and then and then I help you with some suggestions how to write your own poem about it.
Okay.
So this is called Healing Generations. It was a little bit what Barry and I were kind of talking about. Healing Generations. For years, I've carried my father in my right shoulder, a granite boulder of hard words. Can't you do it right? What's the matter with you? Words that built a mountain on my back, holding layers of pain and shame. One day I find a photo of my father, a thin blonde boy standing under a willow tree. In his eyes, I see his own stone of pain, an absent father, a dying mother, just 14, but soon to parent 4 brothers and sisters. I see pain is passed from generation to generation. Words I have worn in my body now eroding, crumbling in the water of understanding, the wind of forgiveness, leaving only pebbles. Ready to let them all go, I breathe out the memories. Gravel turns to sand and blows into the open sky, leaving my shoulder empty of all, save an image of me at 3, on my dad's shoulders, carried outside to say goodnight to the moon and stars. Now, feeling compassion, knowing he loved me as much as he could, my shoulder is unburdened, lighter, free to be itself, freeing me to be myself.
Powerful.
So that's the kind of poems in the book, and then it invites readers to look at their own life and their own process. So it's not just poetry that's just very abstract. It's a way to get readers to really look at what feelings are coming up in them and then write about them.
Wow. Well, you're a beautiful writer, and
Thank you,
I
Phyllis.
feel it in the core of my being, and I can't say enough about the book that I know so well, Empowered Healer, and I'm grateful you could come today and share your wisdom and your energy with us. It's just delightful. Can we do it again?
I would love to be on your show again. I've had a great time. So, we could do it again. We could, once you read, You Don't Have to Die to Go to Heaven.
Yeah, that sounds great.
We could do a show on that, and I could even put people in trance and have them journey, and it'd be fun. It'd be fun for me.
Yeah, that's super fun.
Let's do it again. I love this.
I would be happy, and I so appreciate you, Phyllis.
Yeah.
That you present a forum for people to express themselves, and you've been doing this for so long, and I honor you for your work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Until next time, thank you, Dr. Susan Allison, and the book Empowered Healer. And thanks everybody for being here today, and we will talk soon.